From the New York City area, welcome to the Badass Counseling Show, where the master badass himself, Sven Erlandson, takes you deep and gives balm for the soul, baby.
Hello, badasses around the world. It's great to have you here. It's the Badass Counseling Show lightning round. You have reached us taking questions today from around the world. We've got folks in from the UK. We've got people in from Ireland, folks from Newfoundland all the way over to BC. We've also checked in people down in Arizona and all the way down to South Africa, Pretoria, way over to the other down. We actually had someone check in today from Antarctica. So we are covering the world today and taking questions. I am joined in studio by Casey over in the booth and Rob the Rocket sitting next to me. Rob, what say ye?
Good day. Always like our Q&A sessions. Always something new to learn and something new to listen to. I like it.
Wonderful. And we're starting off right away with Jamie over on TikTok. Jamie, we are live, by the way, on TikTok, on Facebook, and on YouTube. Good to have everyone here up on YouTube. How do I overcome trauma from betrayal and divorce? How do you overcome it? You overcome it by going into it. You overcome it by stop trying to overcome it. You let go by holding on as long as you can. Well, what the hell does that mean? I mean, it's all very poetic and clever, but what does that mean? What it means is you take time, whether it's each day or each week or a few times a week, and you sit down or you go for a walk or whatever you do, go for a long drive. Maybe you're a long drives person. I am. And you start feeling the feelings. You allow yourself to think about it. And probably if you're trying to overcome betrayal and divorce, it doesn't take much for you to think about or for those feelings to come up. So anytime they're coming up, but if you normally keep them locked down, then you have to make deliberate time to bring them up. Anytime you're thinking about it and feeling it, you get a piece of pen and paper and you start writing it out. Now, some people do it in their phone. There's a journal app on Apple that they recently sent with the most recent update a couple months ago, and you can journal right on your phone, right? And then it stays in your phone and it's encrypted. You can journal in your computer. You can journal with pen and paper. I also recommend writing letters. You've heard me say it a million times, guys. Write letters to the person that you're longing for or missing or can't let go of. Write them letters that you do not send. Why do you not send them? Because if you send them, you're going to edit them because it's going to be like, oh, well, she wouldn't like to hear that. I probably shouldn't say that. Or, God, I'm going to sound like a real jerk if I say those things. No, that's the whole point. The point is to flush everything out and to not edit. The point is to get your feelings out, not to sell something to them or get them to see it your way. That's why we don't send the letter. Plus, you'll just embarrass the fuck out of you because you're not going to convince them. You're not going to get them back in all likelihood. And so you're just going to end up embarrassing yourself. And I did that, so I'm speaking from experience. But the point is, the more important point is you use those as tools for flushing out all your shit. That's how you overcome trauma. It's by going into the trauma of betrayal and divorce. And those are intense feelings. We literally just taped an episode of the show. We had TJ on the show, big dude, man's man type of guy. And he talked about how he was in a 21-year marriage, ripped his heart out. He went to the bottle. Why? To escape his feelings, but it also let out a lot of his feelings. And only now, years later, is he starting to actually use smart mechanisms for getting those out. All right, next question. Carmel asked the question on Facebook. How do I face the fact he doesn't love me after 25 years of marriage? I've never had a job. You know, that's really interesting what you spliced together there, Carmel. You present as, gee, my biggest issue is he doesn't love me. And then you immediately go to after 25 years of marriage, but then you say, I've never had a job. So you got two things operating there, obviously. You are struggling with the fact that he doesn't love you anymore, and that hurts. To have been loved and to not feel loved or to not feel loved at all is a terribly painful thing. And what you do to deal with that is precisely what I was just talking about with regard to feeling those feelings of betrayal and trauma when I was talking to Jamie over on TikTok. Here. And Carmel, you need to be flushing all those feelings out. But then you ask the second question, I've never had a job. You make that point. So that's the other thing you're worried about. You're not just struggling with the pain of not feeling loved. You're struggling with the fear of what the fuck am I going to do now? Holy shit, I've never held a job. I'll bet you are terrified, scared out of your wits, aren't you, of how the hell you're going to do it. Right. So that's the other thing you have to go into is all your feelings of fear. And for a lot of people, if you've never done this sort of work, for me to say, oh, you need to go into it, and you need to journal about it and write about it or write the person letters or, journal about how terrified I am, you think, what the hell is that going to do? That's not going to get me a job. You want to bet? See, what's keeping you from getting that job, or what's keeping you from moving on from being unloved by that person? What's keeping you is all your feelings inside. Nothing will corrupt action. Nothing will demotivate us. Nothing will cause us to be hesitant or lack confidence. Nothing will do that more powerfully than feelings. How you feel about yourself, how you feel about the life ahead, how you feel about the life behind you, how you feel about everything going on inside of you. Nothing will cripple you more than that. So the purpose of journaling then is to get all that shit out. The purpose of writing letters to that person that you do not send, the purpose of all these things is to get it out so that you're no longer bogged down from inside. All right, next question.
Got a good one here I think you'll like.
Go for it.
This is from Clara, or in the case of Doctor Who episodes, Clara, who says, my daughter is saying she doesn't want to go to her dad's. She is 3 years old. He sees her every other weekend, but can see her whenever. I don't want to keep her from him, but I want her to feel heard.
Okay. And then, okay, you want her to feel heard. Daughter, 3-year-old daughter doesn't want to go to dad's. And you want her to feel heard. So then I'm just going to ask the obvious question. Have you asked her why she doesn't want to go to her dad's? And without knowing that, it's hard for her to feel heard. You can start by hearing her and asking her what precisely is the reason. Now, the truth is, a 3-year-old, now, there may be reasons, obviously a lot of people's brains are going to go to, gee, is dad, hurting her somehow or whatever. And you can go into that. You would have likely seen an immediate shift in her personality if something were going on. Not even likely. You would have seen an immediate shift if a child is in any way being hurt. They show it. They can't hold it in, especially at that age. So absent that, I'm going to be very honest with you. A 3-year-old child doesn't know what their long-term best interests are. And so I love it when I hear you say, I don't want to withhold the child from the dad. More importantly, I don't want to withhold the dad from the child. That child needs her father, whether she realizes it or not. She's a 3-year-old child. She doesn't know her ass from her elbow. All right. So the way we help the child feel heard is talk to me, what's going on, and so on and so forth. And I don't know what the co-parenting relationship is like with your ex, but if there is any sort of a relationship, the two of you need to have this conversation, if possible, and talk about it without judgment. And he may feel sensitive about it, but the truth is, this is very common. Transitions are the hardest things for children, for all of us. But I remember a wise person said to me said to my ex-wife and me when we were divorcing, they said, your kids, the transitions are going to be the hardest part. And the kids would always cry when they would go from moms to me or me to moms. And my ex always thought, oh, the kids don't want to see him. The kids they're always crying. I said, yeah, no shit. And about 5 minutes after you leave, they're done crying. We have a wonderful time together. And they're sad to leave. But she took it as, oh, the kids love me more than they love you. I'm like, oh, okay, whatever. And, took it as, but in long term, the kids need to be with their dad. So you say you want to make your child feel heard, then ask. And furthermore, if you can, sit down with your husband, ex-husband, and talk with him about it first, or not around the child. And then maybe the two of you sit down and talk with the child and walk them through that. Worst case scenario, not even worst case scenario, but it may, at some point, should it continue, wouldn't hurt to perhaps consult with a child psychologist. Those guys they're great at what they do more often than not. And they have insights into a particular situation and could deal with your daughter in person. But definitely dig deeper with your daughter. All right, next question. Here I've got one from, it looks like Caden over on TikTok. And Caden says, and I don't know if Caden is male, female, non-binary. I don't know. So we'll just go with it as it stands. My brother sexually assaulted me on a daily. Hold on. My brother sexually assaulted me on a daily. He apologized for, and Caden puts in quotes, for being a bad brother, end quote. And I forgive. Now, Caden doesn't state a question. Absent a question, it's hard to offer anything, except you wouldn't be stating that unless you had an issue with it. You wouldn't be stating that your brother sexually assaulted you on the daily and he apologized for, quote unquote, being a bad brother. And the mere fact that you put that in quotes says that, to me, it doesn't satisfy you, that something is missing there, right? Oh, I'm sorry for being a bad brother. Well, as if that, you seem to be implying that that your brother, this is very confusing. You seem to be implying that your brother is basically saying, oh, I was just a bad brother. When you're thinking, no, you fucking sexually molested me. What the fuck is wrong with you? I'm not convinced that and you say you forgave your brother. I'm not convinced that the forgiving actually did anything, because obviously you still have some issue over it, which is totally understandable. Hell, of course you do. But the mere fact that you're bringing it up says you have a serious issue with it, which means the forgiveness didn't work. Now, we've talked about this on the show before, but just forgiving someone doesn't heal anything. People say, oh, you got to forgive yourself. No. You don't ever have to forgive. Forgiving is optional. The real question is, do you choose to go inside of yourself and heal yourself? Do you choose to get all of the pain out? Then you're in a position to forgive if you want to. But forgiveness is like the third choice. What forgiveness? Forget it. You know what it is? Bottom line is you got to get all your own shit out. Then you can decide if you want to repair the relationship with that person. But clearly you haven't gotten all of your pain out because you're still bringing it up now. And that's totally understandable, but you got to get your own freaking pain out. All right, next one. How do I stop worrying about my ex-wife and just co-parent successfully after infidelity? Okay. Luis, you don't say who committed the infidelity. When I first read it, I thought you did, and then or she did, and then now I'm thinking, well, maybe you did. How do I stop worrying about my ex-wife? And just co-parent successfully after infidelity? What does you worrying about her have to do with the infidelity? You put those two in there as those and the worrying. Those are the three operative things. One, worrying. Yeah, just the worrying and the infidelity. I'm not seeing how they're linked. Okay. Just move on with your life. Your ex-wife is not your problem anymore. Okay. And so you've got to begin to express your needs, what you believe is in the best interest of the child, act in the best interest of the children, and stand up for your needs and what you believe the children's needs to be. That's how we co-parent. The infidelity part, if you're feeling hurt because she cheated on you, or if you feel bad or feel whatever because you cheated on her, either way, you have to get those feelings out. Because any feelings, especially in co-parenting after a divorce, remember how I was saying just a few minutes ago that nothing will corrupt your path and corrupt your life more than those feelings and beliefs that you have inside of yourself? Well, it's almost never more true than when it comes to co-parenting. Why? Because it's not about you and it's not about your feelings or your ex. It's not about your ex's feelings. But we always make it about our feelings. And what happens? The kids get fucked over. I literally just put up a post yesterday, day before yesterday. What was it? Where I talked, earlier this week, where I talk about the effect of divorce on kids. And what so many people don't realize is that kids are left carrying the burden. After the divorce papers are signed and the hammer hits the whatever, the kids bear the burden of the divorce. Why? Now I got to go to 2 Christmases. Now I got to share my news, from our sports game. Now I got to share that 2 times, or not to mention grandma and grandpa. Now I got to, watch dad's feelings whenever I'm around him because, or I got to listen to mom bad mouthing dad, or I can never, say how I really feel because, gee, mom gets this or dad gets that. So I'm you become the parent in that regard with a lot of respect. Medical news I got to share in more than one person. And then let alone if mom and dad are still dysfunctional and then they each bring a new dysfunctional person in with them. Not that all step parents are dysfunctional. That's silly. But the point is very often the parent stays dysfunctional and they bring someone in. So now I've got 4 dysfunctional parents. Thanks. I would have been happy with just 2 or at least happier. The point is that very often what so many parents, when they get wrapped up in their own feelings, so swollen, so pregnant with all of their rage or all of their sorrow, is that the people that eat shit are at the people at the bottom of the pecking order, bottom of the totem pole, the people who have the least power, and it's the kids. And very often those adults will even share their problems with the kids. Don't do that. So what's the point? Guys, flush out all your crap. As the adults, all your crap regarding the infidelity, in this case, Luis, or regarding, your marriage and all the sadness or all the anger or whatever, but more importantly, go back and flush out all the shit in your real past that's caused all this shit to begin with. It conditioned you for this relationship that has now been eating you up. And who wins from all of this work that you do on yourself? Your kids do, not to mention you. All right, next question.
From JB, I have been terrified of the dark since age 6. I'm too old for this now, and I'm too traumatized to sleep at night alone. Is this normal?
No, more normal than you might think. More common than you might think as well. And so I guess the question I would want to ask you, and it's different for each person. There are some, there are commonalities in it, but let me ask you, and you feel free to answer back. I don't normally do this. I like to take one question from a person, but what's your biggest fear? All right. Particularly that keeps you up at night. All right. I'm going to go on to a next question. You come back to that one. And the question is, I made the mistake of staying friends with my ex. How do I tell him it's not working? Okay, you guys, this is it. I did a post on this about 3 weeks ago. I put up a post that it was a repost, and it's one of the breakup myths. And one of the breakup myths is let's be friends. You guys, it doesn't work right away. You can be friends with your ex, but if you guys actually had love between you and feelings for each other, it's almost impossible and quite unnecessary. And in fact, it's generally a bad idea to try to be friends right away. If you have kids together, you can co-parent. You can be respectful of each other, but you don't have to be friends. Even if you don't have kids, even if you're fucking 21 and you broke up with your, boyfriend in college, and you're in your senior year, whatever it is, you don't have to be friends, and I don't recommend it. Usually when people are saying, let's be friends, it's either A, someone's trying to escape the relationship and using that as sort of a soft landing, or it's someone wanting to hold on to the relationship when the other person's broken up, wanting to hold on to the relationship, and they're saying, well, shit, if I can at least stay friends, then maybe I can worm my way back in with the relationship. Anytime there's a let's be friends situation, unless the two people had no feelings for each other, then it's easy to be friends. But there's if the desire is to go to let's be friends, there has to be, again, these words, a transition period. And the transition period is painful, generally. Because what you are confirming for me, Silvana Anna, when you say, I made the mistake of staying friends with my ex, how do I tell him it's not working? And I'll answer that question in a second, but this meta issue of being friends right after a divorce, give it a year, all right? Give it a year, minimum. Just go about your separate lives. And if you guys come back together as friends, great. But trying to shape this or wrench it into a friendship, why? Why? Just let it go for now. And if it's meant to be a friendship, it'll happen. Rob, you got an itch, don't you?
Yeah, because I was very much in love with my college girlfriend, and then no contact for 40 years. But now we're friends. So it does. You have to leave a lot of time. Maybe not that much time.
Well, I'm betting that 40 years was simply because you fell out of contact, not because...
That's right.
Right. Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah. I do have the follow-up also.
Well, hold off on that. Okay. Thank you. I will get back to that. I haven't finished with Silvana. And so the point is, guys, if someone is proposing, gee, let's be friends, it's usually because they're trying to get out of the relationship and they want to let you down softly, or it's because you're holding on to that relationship. And what you're going to do if you're the one holding on to the relationship, saying, let's be friends, you're going to follow that person around like a little puppy, so to speak. You're going to keep tagging along, wanting them to love you, wanting them to turn and want you again. And I'd bet my left testicle, Silvana, that's what's going on. I made the mistake of staying friends with my ex. How do I tell him it's not working? That he's hanging on or it's just not, you're feeling encroached upon, something like that. And so how do you tell him? You either, I don't know how you guys communicate, if it's text or email or in person or phone, whatever, but you be honest with them. You say, in all honesty, I'll just call him Bud. In all honesty, Bud, it's just not working. I'm not ready to be friends. Maybe we will be in a year or 2 years or whatever, but I need us to make a clean break for now. And then, and he's going to say, well, this, and he's going to try to sell you on, why you're wrong. And you need to hold firm. And this is anytime you're going into a situation, whether it's a meeting, you guys, or a presentation, or you're having a hard conversation with someone who maybe has the ability to talk circles around you, or they're Teflon in the relationship. You need to always have your one takeaway. What is your one sentence that you can always come back to, even if you get lost in the conversation, or even if you get lost or they're overwhelming you? What is your one takeaway? And in this case, Silvana, your one takeaway, I made the mistake of staying friends with my ex. How do I tell him it's not working? You have to know what your one takeaway is. And I would think it's something along the lines of, it's just not working. I'm going to end it for now. We can be friends later. Well, I'm so mad at you. And that's okay. You can be mad at me. Well, I think we should. And that's okay. You can want those things, but I'm ending it. And then, Silvana, the critical part is you have to hold your boundary. Setting a boundary is easy. Holding a boundary is much more difficult. And if you need to block and shut down and and so forth, then that's what you have to do. But if you don't hold your boundary, you are conveying the message that there is no boundary, and he can keep coming back to you. All right. Rob, give me the follow-up then. Go back to the original question and then give us the follow-up.
All right. The person who wrote in and said he's afraid of being alone, slept in the dark and can't sleep alone. He writes that I was left home alone from age 6. I used to believe in ghosts. Why am I still scared today at age 38?
Because you were left at home alone and you were scared. And so now when you are in your bed at night and it is dark, all of those feelings come right back up. That you're being afraid of the dark at 38, there's nothing wrong with that. First of all, there's no shame in that. Don't fucking shame yourself over that. All right? It's the conditioning since you were 6 that you felt alone in this world. And then what does our brain do? Our brain does what brains do. I live out in the woods, sort of, my property. And there are times when I'm home alone and, I don't have the exterior lights on or whatever. I mean, I know all the cameras are on and everything, but I'm still like, I get a little nervous. Then I'm like, Sven, you're a grown-ass man. You're in the safety of your house. Your brain starts a little bit, So I totally get that. But the bottom line is there's fear there from childhood that you have not, well, to use the cliche therapy word, you haven't processed. And all that means is what I was saying to the person earlier, you have to go into those feelings. You have to, right then when it's dark or at other times as well, welcome those feelings and actually do something constructive. So leave your light on. That's fine. But pull out your journal, your pad of paper, and your pen and start writing about what you're feeling. Not only that, start writing about or writing a letter to the people who left you alone at 6 and made you feel alone. Because you've got a lot of hurt in there, a lot of sadness, a lot of aloneness, likely a lot of anger as well, whether you want to admit it or not. All of that comes out. And the more that you flush out all of the feelings, the less and less you're afraid. Why? Because you're getting out the original source of the fear. So the very thing you have to do is the very thing you don't want to do, and that is you have to go into that fear because that fear has been there since you were 6. That's 32 years it's been there. In a way, you've been, no disrespect, but you've been running from it your entire life. And you've been running from it by leaving the light on. And I understand the light is comforting. I get that. And I'm not shaming you for your fears. I have my fears. We've all had our fears. Many of us still have them. But until we go in them and begin to find the origins of them and drill down in the feelings of those origins and so forth, until we get all that out, you're still just running from your fears. So go into it and begin to flush it out. And I guarantee shit will change. All right. Much more to come right after this short break.
Now here's one of Sven's clients talking about his experience with badass counseling.
What I wanted to be able to get across to other people is just how much you're able to deep dive into what's been going on in my life and help me figure out where and what caused that to help me solve and find those problems in my life to change where I'm going forward. None of the other therapists I went to with that, they try and help me figure out some other issues that may or may not be coming up, whereas you're able to dig down, find the core of what's going on. And I haven't been able to find that before. Just want to get more people aware of where you can go to in case you want your own therapy, and getting the hole in my love cup was one of the things that changed my life.
This show provides soul counseling intended to entertain and inform and is not medical advice. Now, back to the badass.
Hi, guys. Good to have you back. We are back with the lightning round of the Badass Counseling Show. All right. We're diving right back in. I had 2, 3, 4 people right in a row here we are live on TikTok, YouTube, and Facebook. And 2, 3, 4, 5 people right in a row here. Sven, I'm working through your book. This one says it's so intense. It's kicking my ass. I love it. Another one saying, I love your book. It's helped me so much. What they're referring to is there's a hole in my love cup. You guys, I can't counsel every single one of you, okay? I would be very tired at the end of the day, and I already am. I would be tireder, and that's not even a word, but that's how tired I'd be. I'd start saying things like that. And so I've created all these podcasts. We've got 175 podcast episodes of the Badass Counseling Show. You can get them on Spotify, Audible, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, and most podcast sites. It's the Badass Counseling Show, and I counsel people on the show on some episodes, on the Thursday episodes. On the Sunday episodes, I take listeners' questions. So if you're wanting to heal, maybe you can't afford counseling, or maybe you want something to add to the counseling you're doing with your therapist, use these as learning tools. We learn by watching, we learn by listening, and then journal about them and write about them and talk about them. And the more you do that, the more you're going to uncover your own shit. I also have created over 900 plus free videos, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, X, and they're all there. Start using those as journaling prompts. And I go into all this shit, and usually it's a 1 minute slice, and there'll be something in there that'll make you think. Well, you got to go into yourself and write about that shit, and you got to be willing to uncover it. You can't spend your whole life running from your shit. But if you want even more, I put it all into a book, and the book is There's a Hole in My Love Cup. And there's a Spanish version of it if you are a fluent Spanish speaker, or maybe you have a parent who would benefit from the book. The book is There's a Hole in My Love Cup, and we are just actually now coming out with a workbook. There was one before made by some alternate source, and it was illegal, and so we had that one taken down. But I am coming out with our own. Anyway, use these tools, guys. There's a Hole in My Love Cup. You can get it at the website, Badass Counseling. All right, next question. Here we go. This is something that comes up regularly, all right? In the book, There's a Hole in My Love Cup. One of the places where people get stuck is right at the end of chapter 1, I believe it is. And Helena up in Canada writes this. Much love from Canada, Sven. Love you. In your book, you ask us at the beginning to write about the one major trauma in my life. What do you mean by trauma? And what if I can't think of anything? Can I come back to that question later in the journey? Yes, you can always come back to it. Furthermore, a lot of people say, well, I have so many traumas. Where do I start? Just start with one. Start with the smallest, start with the biggest, start with the mediumist, start with whatever the hell you want. But just keep going. And if you've got more traumas, the point is that eventually get to all of them. If you want to do them all now, at least do it. If you want to come back to them, do it. One of the things that a lot of people do with the book is they'll just read it like it's a concept book. It's not a concept book. It's a concept and a workbook book. So you ask, what do you mean by trauma? Anything that hurts. Anything that causes you to have a negative emotion, that has some sort of negative emotional charge attached to it, that's a trauma. Okay. And what if you can't think of anything? Well, start with yesterday. When that guy cut you off in traffic, were you pissed off? Or when your sister called you and she was just always talking about herself again, how did you feel? Or, you know what, when you watched that Lifetime movie on, Lifetime, and it made you sad, start with that. And I know that sounds so trivial, but it's true. Okay, that's where the feelings are. All right, start with that. Write about that Lifetime movie. What made me so sad? Well, it made me sad when Billy and Christopher were, they both divorced. Yes, it was a gay couple and they divorced. But he really loves Susie because he was really straight. And that made me feel sad because my ex-girlfriend was Susie. And I don't know, just write about it. Start the feelings going. And the more that you do that, the more your own trauma is going to come up. Start with yesterday. Start with a week ago. Start with a month ago. You don't have to go all the way back to childhood to begin with if you can't. Start where you can start. And trust me, the more you do that and the more you begin to flush out this shit, guess what? Your soul is going to send up more. Oh, you're ready for more. Oh, you're learning the skills. I got some more to send up to you. And then you can process those, journal about those, and write letters about those and so forth. All right, next question. My boyfriend has a boatload of single girls on Facebook. He now changed his status to being in a relationship with me, but he sees nothing wrong with talking to these girls and having lunch with them. He states they are my friends, and Paula puts it in quotes. My mindset is quality time is not to be with other girls. What do you think? Why does he need this attention? And she's writing in from the South. Okay. My boyfriend has a boatload of single girls on Facebook. He's now changed his status to being in a relationship with me, but he sees nothing wrong with talking to these girls, having lunch with them. He states they are my friends. My mindset is quality time, not to be with other girls. What do you think? And why does he need this attention? And my first question I would actually have to qualify this. I mean, on one hand, it seems easy. Oh, he's screwing around with you or whatever. It's not that simple, especially as we age. It depends. So, for instance, the woman I'm in a relationship with, she has male friends. And in part, she's in an industry that, she runs a company and she has male friends and she gets together for business. She's also does a lot of volunteer work in our city. And so she has, men friends there. I quite frankly don't give a shit. In fact, she's also friends with 3 of her exes, one of whom spends holidays with us. It's the father of, it's her ex from 20 years ago, whatever, the father of her younger daughter. And I know him well, and he's a nice guy. He actually does some computer work for me. for my company. So sometimes what happens as we age is we see a person now and then, but those are now and thens. Those are now and thens. You're saying this is happening on a regular basis. You seem to be implying having lunch with him. So is it a now and then sort of thing, or is it quite regular? And does he spend a lot of time talking to these? Because if it's that, if you guys are a bit younger, because when we're younger, we sort of see things differently. My inclination is that, in all honesty, it could be that if it's a now and then it could be friendships. It's a regular thing. He's wanting female attention, and he states you as the relationship status potentially for two reasons. One, to keep you on the hook, to keep you sticking around, but also potentially to sort of let these other women know that he's in a relationship. But it's just like, dude, who do you want to spend your fucking time with? Me or them or what? But in the end, Paula, none of those are the right question. The real question is this: how do you feel? See, the truth is, you wouldn't be even bringing this up, Paula, unless it made you feel, to use a kid word, yucky. Feels yucky. Doesn't feel good, right? Makes you feel unwanted, unappreciated. So you guys, you've clearly had this conversation because you said, he states, oh, they're friends. Okay, so he's justifying it. And my issue with you would be, or my question to you would be, what if you told him it feels X, Y, or Z? Tell him how it feels. Now, the thing is, you need to be working on your own feelings first. You need to be flushing out your own feelings first before you have the conversation with him, so that you're not going into the situation sort of on an emotional high or an emotional low, which is going to cause you to react rather than just coming from a place of being centered and saying what you want to say. But you bring it up to him. My question would be, does he just defend himself, or does he understand your position? Now, understanding your position doesn't mean he necessarily has to act on it, but do you feel heard and understood? Because if you're not feeling heard and understood, then that tends to cause me to trust him less. If he's just defending his position, that makes me inclined to think we're not dealing with someone who's seeing it fairly or fully rationally, which inclines me to think that, yeah, he may be just using them for more attention and using you because he likes getting love from you too. But in the end, you ask the question, why does he need the attention? Well, because hole in his love cup, right? I mean, he clearly hasn't gotten the attention he's wanted and so on and so forth in his life. And he's using all these women to get it. And what it sort of feels like to me is he's sort of telling you, and I'm betting this is part of what hurts, he's telling you, you're not enough. You're not enough to fill my cup. And that's how it's feeling. And that hurts. And tell him that. And then watch how he responds. And if he responds with deflect, defend, dodge, or deny, I don't mean to be rude, but he's not the guy for you. Why would you want to be with somebody who doesn't take your feelings seriously and the fact that you feel it's not enough? Now, if you expect him to have no female friends, then it's you being unreasonable, right? Because the truth is we all have friends, whatever. I mean, I have lunch with Casey. Rob has had lunch with Casey. You know, we're friends. You know, we just, whatever. But we're also all older. But anyway, you need to watch how he responds to you. If he is kind and understanding, you don't need asking him to not have any female friends or not, spend time with his friends. That's silly, especially as we age. But if this is an incessant thing, I would be very wary, and I would actually stand up for you. Go ahead, Rob.
She says boatloads of women.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. Well, that could imply that either A, there are a lot, or B, it feels to me as if there are a lot. But either way, yeah, the guy's somewhat of a tough call. I'd put it at about 60% that he's probably using them and using you to get his own love needs or attention needs met. And then that's a person that's really sketchy to be in a relationship with because of how they're going to make you feel. But also you don't, it's going to be eventually that you're not enough for him. In his mind.
She must be thinking he's discussing their relationship with these other women.
Well, and there's that. And if he's doing that, discussing your relationship with these other women, then that's someone you want to dump for sure, because it's like, no. You don't, as my mom would say, don't hang your dirty laundry in public. and if he's doing that, then he has no loyalty to you. Your emotional stuff is your relationship. If he wants to talk about that with his friend or with his therapist or maybe his sister or something like that, or maybe he has his one best friend from childhood who is a woman, but they're just friends and you guys know, both couples know each other and shit, that's one thing. But seeing boatloads of women, and if he is sharing shit about your relationship, that's so not okay. All right, here we go. This is an odd one. Somewhat, and a sad one, but I'm going to give it to you real quick here. This is from Michelle. Michelle says, how do you move on from recent physical abuse from your teenage son? Bruising, a concussion, and difficult divorce. Okay. The commas, in college and in graduate school, I studied both Greek and Hebrew on top of Latin and German and two forms of Greek. And one of the things in ancient Greek texts is there was no punctuation. So trying to figure out where the sentence ends or what two words go together was always a tricky thing. Well, I'm running into something here with Michelle. Michelle says, and I'm going to read it and I'm going to tell you where the comma is. All right. How do you move on from recent physical abuse from teenage son, bruising, concussion, and difficult divorce? Now, if she had used more commas or less commas, it could read, how do you move on from a recent physical abuse from your teenage son? Bruising, concussion, and a difficult divorce. In other words, three separate things unrelated to each other. But the way she has it punctuated, and I'm trying to understand, Michelle, I'm not trying to make you feel bad or anything. I'm just genuinely trying to understand and talk my listeners through what I think you might be saying. It's either three things independently related, or you're saying physical abuse from my teenage son and a bruising, concussion from the teenage son, and then on top of it, a difficult divorce. But the way it reads right now, how do I deal with physical abuse from my teenage son, bruising, concussion from my teenage son, and a difficult divorce from my teenage son? That's the way it reads right now. Now, obviously, you didn't have a difficult divorce from your teenage son. You are dealing with a difficult divorce and physical abuse from your teenage son that led to a bruising and a concussion. All right, how do you move on? Teenage son, are you saying you want... I'm betting you've had this shit happen at the hands of your teenage son, and you're wondering how you move on so that you can still be a mom to your teenage son. How do I do that? In all honesty, a few things have to happen. If your son is physically abusing you and you do not feel safe in your own home, then you need to get professional help in your own community there. All right? But we move on, folks, and this is about the second or third time this has come up today, moving on from love or moving on from an ex or becoming friends or whatever. The way we move on is by flushing out all of our pain. So you've got a lot of hurt, anger, rage. I mean, so anybody physically abusing you, you're going to have rage inside of you, as well as pain. All of that has to come out. And you put a little cry emoji after difficult divorce, and you've got strong feelings there. Clearly, you are down from your difficult divorce, and your teenage son is capitalizing on that and physically abusing you, and that's not okay. That shit has to stop now, yesterday. And you keep flushing out your feelings. You need to be seeing a therapist, and obviously, you need to be getting the bruising and concussion, taken care of medically. But this relationship with your son will only change as you get your pain out, but also as you get your own inner strength back, because he needs you to be stronger than him. He needs you to teach him that that is not okay, because if he's doing it to his own mother as a teenager, guess what? You are breeding him to abuse girls and women. You are, and the father is. If you allow him to treat you this way, you are confirming that his actions are normal and acceptable, and that's not okay. And on behalf of all the mothers and fathers out there, don't teach him that, because it could be their son or their daughter that he physically abuses next. You have an obligation to humanity. You have an obligation to your son to teach him that this is not okay. Well, you're only going to have the ability to do that. You're only going to have the ability to do that is it by finding your own sense of self inside, but that comes by getting all your own shit out. You need to be in therapy, and you also need to be counseling and so forth, getting all out, all of your pain and all of your sadness, because that's detracting from your own sense of self. It's detracting from your own sense of strength that will enable you to make these changes. And so the answer to the answer to all problems in our own individual lives is to heal the shit from our past, because that's what's keeping you from doing what you know you need to do, or doing what needs to be done, or doing what needs to be done as a parent. All right, next question. Why does he keep contacting me every few days when he doesn't want me and gets his supply from other girls? Supply. I know what you mean, but it's fascinating that's, you actually, by using that word, you actually just answered your own question. Why does he keep contacting me every few days when he doesn't want me and gets his supply from other girls? Now, the question is, what are they supplying? It could be offered that they're supplying sex, right? That's the obvious thing, and intimacy, physical touch, kissing, but it also implies potentially, likely, the cooing words and the you're great and I love you or I want you and all those things. So he's getting his supply for attention, his supply for affection, met by all these other girls. But then why would he need you? Why would he want you? Because you're part of the supply, Aaron. You're part of the supply. I mean, why settle for one when you can have two? Why settle for two when you can have four? Is likely somewhere inside of him that's operating. And you're wondering why he keeps contacting me, because he wants you back, or at least in his orbit. Why? Because he wants to pour love into you? No. Because he wants you to stay and keep pouring love into him. This is total extreme taker shit here, or as some people call them, narcissists. That he wants to keep you in the loop so that you'll keep wanting him, or at the very least giving him attention. Now remember, folks, if a child, and it applies to adults, if a child can't get positive attention, which is what they really want, they'll settle for getting negative attention. They'll settle for you yelling at them or telling them to go away. They'll settle for negative attention. Why? Because negative attention beats the shit out of no attention. Because no attention means I don't matter. If daddy isn't yelling at me, I know daddy never tells me nice things. And so I'm going to get him to at least be mad at me, and I'm going to yell and scream, or I'm going to have tantrums, or I'm going to stay out late and party with my friends or whatever. Why? To get yelled at, to get mad. Maybe they'll impose a curfew. Well, why would any kid want that? Because it shows you give a shit. It shows you see me. Whereas if I'm not getting in trouble, you don't even see me. Okay, so what's going on here is, Aaron, the supply you're giving him is attention. So even when you're telling him, just go away, just leave me alone. Why are you doing all those things? I don't understand why you're still in conversation with him. You're still looking at him. Do you get it? Even when you're fighting with him, you're still looking at him, and he loves that. He wants your attention. That's why he's doing it. You are part of the supply chain. And all those girls that you're complaining about and yourself exist to pour love into his love cup. And it comes in a different form from each person. So the question isn't, why does he keep contacting me? Because you obviously don't want him contacting you unless, well, that's the other thing. If the bottom line is you haven't blocked him. And why is that? That's the question you got to ask yourself. So is it possible you're asking yourself the question, why does he keep contacting me? Because somewhere in you still want him back, and you're trying to figure out, oh, does this mean he still loves me? Does this mean he still likes me? So if you're still looped in, then you got to get into your own feelings and write him letters you don't send and flush out in your journaling what you're feeling for him. Because only when you flush out all your shit will you be able to move on. But if you actually are able to move on, then block him. Block him. He doesn't have access to you anymore. Because that shows you're serious. It shows yourself you're serious. And then he doesn't get to have you looking at him anymore. All right. Rob?
Sven, this is interesting. Earlier in the hour, we had a listener with a very general comment question. Do you have advice for insecurity and setting boundaries? And then later on, just now, same person, XU, says, if you have a partner who cheated, but you continue and choose to move forward, how do you get over the fact that they cheated? So he got specific here.
How do you get over the fact that, how do you get over the fact that they cheated? The thing you've already heard me mention 20 times today, you go into your feelings and you start flushing out your feelings. All right, that's how you won't get over, but that doesn't even guarantee getting over the cheating. That's an ongoing thing. When you've been cheated on or been hurt in some major way, folks, you're going to have very strong feelings of anger, hatred, distrust, sadness, distrust, betrayal, distrust, sadness, anger, distrust for probably a long time. And it's an ongoing thing. You have to keep flushing out all those feelings. You can say, okay, I'm over it now, but guess what? It's going to rear its ugly head in a month or in 6 months or whatever. There's so much that happens when we've had a massive betrayal. It's just so extraordinarily powerful. But the real part that if you are my client, the real part I'd push you on is not that there's anything wrong with it, but why do you want to stay with somebody who's cheated on you? Why do you want to stay with someone who has cheated in one crushing blow that you can't trust them? See, now you're wanting to trust them, I would offer, because you're afraid of being alone. You're afraid of walking away. You're afraid of them not wanting you. You're afraid. You've been conditioned also likely to believe that, you're not important. You don't matter. You're not lovable. Something is down deep inside of you that's causing you to walk back to someone when they haven't even proven they're worthy of trust again. You want to walk back to someone who has just grievously wounded you. All right. You're going against your own best interests. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't go back. I'm not saying you shouldn't forgive, but the fact that you're doing it so soon, the fact that you're doing it at all indicates that you may have feelings that you likely have beliefs inside of you that say, this is all I'm worth, and I have to hold on to somebody no matter what, because I can't stand to be alone, or it just confirms all my messages that I have no worth, and so forth. And so, I mean, how do you get over it? You're not going to get over it soon. Furthermore, like I said, you're just going on a promise. Well, somebody's words can say, oh, that was in the past. I'll never do it again, blah, 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 blah. So they've shown with their actions, in extraordinarily powerful actions, they can't be trusted. But now with very easy words, it's very easy to use your mouth and just promise the world. With their words, they're trying to make that action, that massive action, go away. And you're believing it. So you have all this evidence, and you're choosing to believe a promise. And why would you be doing that? Because you're terrified of being alone, because you don't want to break up the family, because of whatever fears are operating inside of you. Something is causing you to go against evidence. And the truth is, when you deal a crushing blow like that, it requires a regrowing of evidence to overwhelm the crushing blow. In other words, this person that betrayed you is going to have to win your trust back brick by brick by brick over a significant period of time. Otherwise, you're just pretending to trust them when you really don't. Go ahead, Rob.
I apologize for choosing a pronoun. There's no way to tell which gender is involved here.
Fair enough. Aloka asked the question, why do we keep giving this attention? So she's referring back to the question of a minute ago, where the woman couldn't figure out why her ex wanted to stay in contact when he has all these other women as supply on the side. And then Aloka sort of asks it from the position of that person who asked that question. Why do we keep giving this attention? Well, there you go. That's the question to be asking. Why do I keep giving the attention to someone who, has rejected me, or we've broken up, or whatever? Because part of you, somewhere in you, still wants them, or still feels responsible for them, or feels bad for them. But even below feeling bad for them, you want something. Likely a part of you, even if it's 10%, still wants that love back. And you're sad that it's over, and so forth. This is why your feelings, and flushing out your feelings, as I was saying a little bit ago, this is why getting all that stuff out of you is so important. Because when you have feelings inside of you that are swollen, that are pregnant, that are huge, that are big, then you make decisions against your own best interests. And not only that, you make decisions that are not in tune with who you really are. That's why we get all these feelings out. All right, last question. All right. Amanda asked the question on Facebook, Sven, how do you overcome what's keeping us in fear mode and giving us paralysis? How do you overcome what's keeping us in fear mode and giving us paralysis? The cure for the pain is in the pain. You go into the fears. Have you articulated your fears in one sentence or less on paper? Have you then written about, after each fear, why do I fear that? Where does it come from? And journaled out your answer. And then ask yourself the question, well, who taught me that? Or, as you've heard me do here on the show many times with clients, and as I talk about in the book, have you asked yourself the question, what is the absolute worst case scenario if this fear were to come to pass? What do I fear the very most? And journaling that out, writing that out. And then ask yourself the question, if that came to pass, then what? And that's a powerful question right there, folks. Take whatever your fear is in this situation, whether it's fear of failure, fear of being alone, fear of the unknown, fear of being destitute, whatever your fears are, or just a smaller fear unique to this situation, write it down on paper and then ask yourself the question, and if this came to pass, then what? Oh, it'd be horrible. I wouldn't make it. It'd be a fate worse than death. No way. I can't even think about this, blah, blah, blah. Okay, but stay in it. Answer the question. What would happen? If that fear came to pass, would you kill yourself? Well, no, Sven, I wouldn't do that. I would blah, 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 blah. Or it would be so hard. Oh, I'm not disputing it would be hard. But answer the freaking question. If this fear came to pass, what would you do? And if you're saying you wouldn't kill yourself, what you are saying then is that this fear wouldn't kill me. What you are saying then is that life goes on. What you're saying, yes, you'll grieve. Yes, if when our fears come to pass, it's hard, we're scared, we grieve it, we cry it out, we whatever, and then what? And then life goes on. So in other words, what you're saying is if this fear came to pass, life goes on. Well, Sven, what if my fear is a medical issue and I have stage 4 cancer? My life's not going to go on. I may die. That's right. That's right. It's a horrible place to be in. And I, as a former pastor and as someone, who counsels people every day, death, physical death. That's right. And the ones that I've counseled over the years, the ones who finally have the breakthrough is when they realize life has to go on now. A very dear friend of mine, cancer. And he talked about, Sven, really having to confront that and going in for the chemo and going in for the transfusions and all this stuff. He said, it just changed me. And when it went into remission and so forth, he says, it changed me. I said, how did it change you? He says, I'm more alive now than I've ever been in my entire life. And I know that it could come back any point, particularly the type of cancer I have. He says, I am alive. I'm spending more time with my sons than I ever have. My wife and I were just tighter and so forth. So my point is, in looking at your fears, it's drilling down to, and then what? If it came to pass, then what? Because if there is a then what, then you are acknowledging that life goes on. Then you are acknowledging that this fear does not own me. And the more you flush out the then what's, and the more you flush out the eventualities that you fear so much, the less grip they have over you. All right. It's been great. These have been great questions. Rob, any final thoughts today?
You've done it again.
We've done it again, young man. All right. And I invite you to come back to all of our listeners from Belgium to, I was going to say Byzantium, but I don't think that even exists anymore. That's a bit dated.
It's an empire.
Yes. Well, the Byzantine Empire, well, you're right, based in Byzantium. Anywho, wherever you are, even in Greece, we have guests in Greece and Estonia, and it's not guests, but followers all around the world, wherever you are tuning in from, including Green Bay, Wisconsin. It's great to have you here. On behalf of the team, have a kick-ass day.
The Badass Counseling Show is strictly copyrighted. No copies may be made without the express written consent of the Badass Counseling Show, LLC. The Badass Counseling Show is produced by Karen Camparelli and Robert H. Friedman. Executive producer Sven Erlandson. Original music by 2-time Emmy Award-winning composer Trevor Morris. Have a kick-ass day.